welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Shivani Singh. For years, scholars and people from all walks of life have stated that Sri Lanka is not Ravana's Lanka. And for the first time ever, a researcher has decoded the science behind it. Using evidence based on research, Director of the Bharat-Lanka Cooperation, Mr. Bala V. Rao, has released a paper. This paper focuses on scientifically establishing that Sri Lanka is indeed Ravan's Lanka, thereby reinforcing the historical authenticity of the Ramayana through evidence-based research. The next steps of this abstract paper will be the submission of full paper for peer review. This is by far the biggest breakthrough that any researcher has achieved in the field of scientifically decoding the Ramayana. And today, we have the man himself. Joining me live is Bala V. Rao, the Director of Bharat-Lanka Cooperation and the man behind this massive achievement. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the broadcast. We appreciate your time. Sir, if I start off with this entire discussion, historically everything has been proven, but we needed that scientific evidence. And your research involved years of study and multiple trips across the island. What was that specific moment of discovery or a particular site in Sri Lanka that actually convinced you that modern Sri Lanka and Ravana's Lanka of the epics are one and the same thing?
Thank you, Shivani, for inviting me today for the show. And it is important that we give it to the nation that the scientific evidences of that proves that Sri Lanka is indeed Ravana Lanka. And you asked me what particular site is giving me this picture, but I can say that the whole of Sri Lanka island itself is the answer for that. So, and for that we need to go through the sciences using Paleomagnetism, using Oceanography, and there are a few papers which are already published, and my paper will be decoding most of the confusions related to the position of Lanka, which indeed taking us straight to Sri Lanka itself. Sri Lanka is indeed the Lanka of Ravana as mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana.
So when you talk about the position of Sri Lanka, let's talk about Paleomagnetism that you have indeed spoken about in your paper as well. What is that evidence that actually scientifically proves that Sri Lanka is exactly geographically in that position that has been mentioned in the scriptures?
Yes. For this we will start with the basic understanding should happen on how the literature of Valmiki Ramayana is written. So, if you see, first let us observe the 40, 41, 42 and 43 sargas of the Kishkinda Kanda. So, where Sugriva is sending his Varnaras or the army divided into 4 teams and in search of Sita Devi. So, whether these people have actually gone search for Sita Devi or not, how did Sugriva knows or not, this is all not important. What is important is Valmiki Maharshi is able to document the geography of those days. So, these people know the geography of those days. That is why Maharshi Valmiki is able to document the geography of those days, which is intact more or less the same like the geography of today. So, there are mentions about the tribes whose narration is very close to the Jaravas tribe in Andaman Islands. There is a mention about a tribe whose narration is very close to the Shomphens tribe in Andaman Islands. There is a mention about the Java island. There is mention about the various mines in that region. And the narration keeps going. It goes all the way up to Peru, Paracas, Candelabra also. So, the geography is very well documented. Secondly, so there are multiple places where these Vanaras go and come back to the same place. Even like Ravana abducting Sita and going back straight to Lanka. So, Rama after finishing his 14 years of exile and going back to Ayodhya, which also gives these people are having the knowledge of navigation. So, the geography is documented and navigation is very clear, and without the navigation, geography might not be documented so well, which also brings us to a conclusion that these people know the knowledge on magnetism. Without knowing the magnetism, having knowledge on magnetism, navigation on the globe is not possible. So, they have some knowledge on magnets and magnetism, comparing it with modern compass, etc. Okay. Now, let us see, let us keep the knowledge of magnetism aside, and let us now go to what the scriptures say. So, in Surya Siddhanta and Aryabhataya and few other scriptures, it is mentioned that if a prime meridian, or if a meridian is an imaginary line is drawn comparing with the current prime meridian which goes through the UK or Greenwich meridian, those days have their own meridians. So, when a meridian is drawn connecting Lanka and the North Pole, that meridian passes through the kingdoms of Rohtak, Avanti and Kurukshetra regions. It passes through. That is what these scriptures say. And also the scriptures say that when the earth is divided into two equal halves, on that particular latitude or the horizontal meridian, also the Lanka passes through. So, which means in those days a 0, 0 latron should be in Lanka. So, whether that those days 0.0 is today's Sri Lanka or not is what we are going to find out. Where most of the researchers go a little deviated or go to a sudden conclusions which may lead to them or which may put to them to Indian Ocean or somewhere down the Maldives or some other location like Australia or something like that, is because they don't, so they immediately when this reference comes, they want to know where the Lanka is. So, from the scriptures they try to point the North Pole of the modern North Pole, what we are considering it as geographical North Pole, what we are considering it, and then we try to draw a meridian passing through Avanti, today's Ujjain and Rohtak and Kurukshetra, etc., and try to extend it further down and see where it touches to the modern equator considered, and we end up in the Indian Ocean where there is no land at all, and we immediately jump to the conclusion there is no land. So, the 0.0 there is no land, so Lanka might have been sunk. So, did they actually go dive there and see anything there? No, they did not do that, but they go and conclude that Lanka is not Lanka. Now let us back to the magnetism point what we have thought before. So, if they have the knowledge on magnetism and if they might have used some kind of magnetic material like compass or something, using a compass even today, if any one of us try to go north, do we reach to the North Pole? The answer is no. We do not reach to the North Pole if we keep traveling to the north using any magnetic device. Instead, we reach to the geomagnetic North Pole, which is slightly tilted. Now, you try to replace the geomagnetic pole, geomagnetic North Pole, instead of the geographical North Pole, insert it to the Surya Siddhanta and then try to draw the meridian as described in those ancient texts. And this meridian passing through the geomagnetic North Pole will pass through Rohtak, will pass through Kurukshetra, will pass through Avanti, that is Ujjain, and will also pass through today's Sri Lanka, which is confirming that Sri Lanka is Ravana Lanka. When you take geomagnetic North Pole, what you have to take? Geomagnetic equator you have to take, not the geographical equator, and the geomagnetic equator also passes through Sri Lanka.
Right. So, also, so you know, many scholars, so this is about paleomagnetism when we are talking about the geomagnetic north, and that is how Sri Lanka is aligned on that you know, meridian, as you say. But many scholars and researchers also argue that the Lanka described in the Valmiki Ramayana must have been on the equator or you know, is now submerged. So, what was that smoking gun in your new findings that definitely pins that Ravana's Lanka is there where the current island of Sri Lanka is actually located? So, we are bringing in oceanography in your findings as well, sir.
Yes. So, now as per the paleomagnetism, we have seen that Sri Lanka is Ravana Lanka, and if you try to compare the differences in the degree of deviation from the ancient times to today, it is less than 1 degree when it comes to the position of 0.0 in Sri Lanka. The longitudinal difference is coming around 0.06, so minute, and the latitudinal difference is coming to 0.8 only. and at the poles it's hardly 3.5 degrees of difference. Okay, now let's shift to oceanography. Now we'll keep complete paleomagnetism aside and let us understand from a completely different angle and different science work whether that is also taking us to Sri Lanka or not. Now let us take as we go back in time, it is understood that the water levels of the sea could have been much lesser. So the land between India and Sri Lanka might not be having so much of water as we had now. So there might be land. So if there is land there between India and Sri Lanka, which means there is no question of building the bridge. So the confusion immediately creeps in that Sri Lanka might not be Ravana. So now let us understand which is the oldest ancient scripture which refers to that there is a land in between India and Sri Lanka. Is there any scripture that is referring to? Yes, and that is Valmiki Ramayana itself. In Valmiki Ramayana, you can see this context comes when Vishwamitra takes Ram and Lakshman along with him. So you can consider it as the residential education or whatever, comparing to the modern style. So in that time, in those days, when Vishwamitra has taken Ram and Lakshman along with him, he starts telling the history of Ishwaku family. He starts teaching the history of Ishwaku family itself to Ram. In that context, there is a king called Sagar in the Ishwaku dynasty. So way far before Ram, way far before Ravan. Okay, so this Sagar, King Sagar, for doing some yagya, for some reason, there is an exploration of across the world happened, and in this exploration, as a part of that yagya, the digging of the earth at multiple places happened. It is mentioned very clearly. So, and this reference comes from Balakanda till Yuddhakanda, continuously in Valmiki Ramayana. So, in Balakanda, the first reference comes where this Sagar has asked his people to dig the land across the world, of which in one of the places where they are digging, the interaction with the water also happens. Whether this interaction with the water is happening between India and Sri Lanka or not, and in Balakanda it is not clear. But then when you go to Sundarakanda, then the second reference comes. What does the second reference comes? Where the Valmiki Maharshi, as if the Sagara, that is the ocean, is thinking to himself, Valmiki Maharshi is trying to tell to the reader or to the listener of his text. So what did it say? Sagara, when Hanuma is traveling to Lanka, Sagara is thinking to himself, I need to help this Maruti who is going in support of the Ishwaku family. Okay, I need to help him because my very presence, my waters in this region is very much because of the digging made by the Ishwaku dynasty itself, that Sagar has dug the area, because of which my waters are here. I am present today here is because of their family, and this guy is helping them, so I need to help him. So that's the context what water, the ocean, is thinking to itself, and in that way Valmiki is trying to tell the reader or the listener. And the third reference comes. Third reference comes the conversation between the Mainaka mountains and Hanuma. Mainaka mountain is communicating with Hanuma, I want to help you because the ocean here wants me to help you. The ocean here wants me to help you because the very presence of the water here is because of the digging happened by Sagar and his citizens, and because of which the water is here. So he wanted me to help you and I wanted to help you. So the third reference comes. And the fourth reference comes in Yuddhakanda. See, you can see the series of references coming. The fourth reference comes in Yuddhakanda, where Vibhishana has already come to support Ram to this side. And then Hanuma and Sugriva were asking Vibhishana, now the army has to cross the oceans and go to the island. So do you have any suggestions on that? In that particular sequence, Vibhishana will be telling, there is no water here before. There was no water here before. It was because of the Ishwaku family digging it, the water got extended here, the waters of the ocean has come here. Vibhishana tells it. And finally Nala also tells. So this is the fifth reference in the Valmiki Ramayana itself. Nala tells to Ram, the water has come here is because of your family, the Ishwaku family, digging the land here. Because of this, water has got extended. These many times he keeps on repeating that the water got extended because of the digging happened by the Ishwaku family, which also confirms that there is land before. Now let us shift the focus. Now leave Ramayana aside. is there any other text which is referring to this? Yes. In Srimad Bhagavatam and in Mahabharata, when the references of Ramayana comes in these texts, and even there the digging made by Sagar is referred. And when this repetition happened after thousands of years during the Vyasa time, when the digging of this happened, there is more information coming in. What is that more information? Digging happened by Sagar and his people. The water got extended, because of which multiple adjoining islands are formed. Multiple adjoining islands are formed, of which there is an island called Sinhala Deepam, there is an island called Lanka Dvipam. Even today, Sri Lanka is not a single island, because it is a union of islands. There are group of islands. Whole of Jaffna is an island. Whole of Mannar is an island. So it's, even today it's a group of islands. And our ancient scriptures has never saw this as a single island. They saw it as a group of islands. Even today it's a group of islands.
So
that is where we find.
We did see paleomagnetism, we saw oceanography. Are there any recent archaeological excavations or geological studies? You mentioned something about a CSIR study that was done with the Indian Institute of Oceanography as well. What were those studies that actually supported your findings? And lastly, why is this important for us to understand the significance of Sri Lanka being Ravana Lanka?
Okay, so now I said Sinhala Dvipam is there. Even today Sri Lanka is having the Sinhala as the language which they are speaking, which is again concluding that Sri Lanka is Ravana Lanka. Now coming to the oceanography, so say suppose if there was land way time before Rama, way time before Ravana, before Sagar asking his people to dig the land, if there was land connecting between these two places, which also means that land should have some rivers flowing or some water body flowing, some stream should be flowing, right? And in 2023, CSIR NIO, National Institute of Oceanography, has published a paper, and in that paper there are two important things to be noted. This when they did the research in around Ramasetu, they found that the existing water channels, the previously flown water channels of streams and rivers, multiple water channels are found below the seabed. This confirms that Sri Lanka is Ravana Lanka. So that is the major breakthrough. And in the paper there is also one mention that while the intervention of humans for filling the gaps of shallow waters cannot be ruled out, is the statement which is given in the paper published by the National Institute of Oceanography, Government of India.
All right, and lastly, sir, what is the actual significance of this entire finding, and why do we need to?
Why do we need to is, there are two reasons what I can say. See, so as we are Indians, we own Rama a lot. So Ram is our identity as an Indian or a Bharatiya. So likewise, Sri Lankan's identity is Ravan. So there's nothing wrong about it. But now the question is, say suppose some person from some other country like Mexico or some other Brazil or some other country, they just go onto the internet and say that India's Ayodhya is not Ayodhya. How do we feel? We feel hurt. I feel hurt, at least. We feel very, very, very badly hurt. Likewise, now when we Indians, as the foreigners to Sri Lanka, our people, just to sensationalize their YouTube views, they go onto the internet and say Sri Lanka is not Ravana Lanka. So how does the Sri Lankans feel? So in spite of India trying to be a good friend to Sri Lanka in terms of helping them economically, in terms of helping them with fuel, helping with their daily needs, whatever it be, you do a lot of help on one hand, and Indians on the other hand, you start poking them, your Lanka is not Ravana Lanka, and you start them poking them culturally, they feel bad, right? That is unnecessarily building gap between both the nations, people to people connect, and that we should put the stop somewhere.
All right.
And there's one more danger what I feel. Around 20 years back, when there was a issue of digging away the whole Ramasetu on the name of development, on the name of shipping canal to be built, by removing the whole Ramasetu or digging Ramasetu off. So unfortunately the debates happened on the highest courts of India, and unfortunately the top leaders of then also supported to the concept of that the happening of Ramasetu, happening of Ramayana itself is questioned, and the very existence of Ramasetu itself is questioned. Of course, they lost it in the courts because they questioned the faith. Now, by inducing a confusion in the society that Ramayana might have happened, but Sri Lanka is not Ravana Lanka, when this confusion is induced into the society, which means somewhere in the future they are trying to take the narrative back again. Oh, okay, now Ramayana, we are not touching Ramayana, we are not touching your faith, but we are saying that Sri Lanka is not Ravana Lanka, so this is not Ramasetu, so allow us to dig it. So somewhere like that, I foresee that this kind of dangerous narrative is getting creeped into the society.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Rao, for joining us on the debate and explaining those findings for us. That's it from us on this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.